Late Night at a Pawn Shop. It's this poem written by Martin Espada. He's a political activist in the Puerto Rico community up in Brooklyn, and he writes his poetry that's has a lot to do with music throughout his career. And this one in particular, it's called Late Night at a Pawn Shop. It starts off the apparition of a salsa band gleaming in the Liberty Loan pawn shop window. And he uses the word apparition here, and he talks about the apparition of a band. So this is something that's hanging there that's out of place, and it's in a pawn shop window. All these instruments are together. They're sharing this spot in this window, and they seem kind of out of place. And it's a salsa band's instruments. So in the poem, it calls it the golden trumpet, silver trombone, congas, maracas, tambourine, and all these instruments are, some instruments that would belong to a salsa band. And it's hard, when I was first reading this and I get through, this was on one page, I have to turn the page over, so I'm kind of like, where's this poem going? And it's really just talking about these instruments. So I was kind of curious how it would play out. And I got the theme of this when it got to all the price tags dangling, like the city morgue ticket on a dead man's toe. So that's where I discovered the theme of the poem. It was right at the end, and it's talking about these price tags hanging on the instruments like they're hanging from a dead man's toe. And to me, what he's getting at is the fact that you have all these musicians out there in the world today, and some of them make it and they get really big, but you have a lot of young kids, and not all of them are young kids, some of them are grown adults and they're musicians, and they continue to play music or whatever. But life doesn't always happen the way you want it to, so these musicians try to make a career out of it and try to live life while being in bands and whatnot, and they're not always able to do that. And the musician in them, for whatever reason, dies, and they have to move on with life. Maybe their priorities change. They have families and they have children, or they want to have families and children, so they have to figure out a way to make a living in music. For some reason, it just isn't paying the bills for them. We all know about the line about the starving artist, and I think that plays for musicians as well as just about any artist out there. And it really kind of hit home. My son, he's tried to kind of pursue music a little bit, and he was only able to get so far. He started a little bit late, and he's going to college now, and so he's trying to juggle this love of playing music and doing these different things with the knowledge that he's going to have to live life at some point. And so he's juggling this with his college and figuring out what his career wants to be. So I try to help him out a little bit, and let him know that, hey, you can always just keep playing music. You don't have to necessarily make it your career. But that's his struggle, and I can see you see this a lot. Living here in Memphis, you see a lot of musicians out on the street, and they're trying to play. There's a guy down on Main Street, and I don't know his name, but he's down there quite a bit in the summer, and he's playing his saxophone, and he plays it just about every day for whatever money somebody will throw in the bucket for him. And you're kind of curious, how long is this kid going to keep playing down there for what little change he happens to get, and what kind of job does he have outside of that? So and that's where this poem's come into play. Is that not everybody can sustain that forever. At some point, your life has to get on. And this, where the instruments are hanging in the window and they got their price tags on, the author is explaining it in a way that somebody's musical career is over, and they've pawned all their instruments, and they've gone on a new journey. And that's what the poem's really